Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Tuesday, the 27th of January. So I don't know about you guys, but we got a boatload of snow, and I spent most of the day out in it yesterday trying to get cows fed and everything else. And of course, I don't know why, but it seems like when you get older, when you slip and fall, it hurts in more places. I tore my knee right out. Went down and I mean the snow is fluffy, thank goodness for that. But when you get old and decrepit, going down is the easy part. It's trying to get back up is the difficult one, right? So hopefully you guys are all warm and healthy and everything else. And I appreciate all the comments on the hourlies and stuff like that. That's why I kind of kept it at arm's length because there's so many different facets between what employees are seeing and what employers are seeing and what neither one of them are seeing, you know, of what the other's doing. And there's such a vast stuff that goes into it. You know, for me to try to pass judgment on anybody, any shop, any is ludicrous because you run the shop the way you think is best to be profitable. That's the end goal. You need to be in the blue or at least break even at the end of the year, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. In saying that, I think all the answers were good. And I totally am grateful for them. But what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to make a change because I'm tired of it. So I thought we'd go into the realm of how much inventory do you really need, honestly. And if you're like me, well, hang tight. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric. If you didn't already know it, and yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Tuesday, the 27th of January of 2027. So when I talk about stock or inventory, I'm talking about used parts as well. You know, most of us that have been in the business for a long time, we end up scarfing up parts that we know move fast, but then there's that point, that pendulum that tips, right? And it goes from, it used to be a fast mover to you have a half inch of dust sitting on it on the bottom shelf or tucked way to the top shelf or in a box where you know where it is or you hope you know where it is. Only you can decide how much inventory to carry. What I find the most is it dictates on the amount of room that you have. The more room you have, the more crap you seem to keep. The less room you have, you're just the very bare essentials. You're a repair shop, right? That's what you're in business for. You're not in business to peddle parts unless you've got a retail shop as well. We did both for years. We still have a retail shop where customers can come in and buy parts, carburetor kits, all that goodie, and do-it-yourselfers that want to do their own thing. But even then, you know, I've talked to you guys before in videos of the reason I have a lot of inventory is because we were selling a lot of inventory in its heyday. All right. And thank goodness, you know, I've taken over $100,000 in inventory and I've got it down to, I think, around 7 now. But that 7 is new old stock now. And some of it is just starting to sell again because there's none on the market. They're not available, right? So there still is a value in it. But if I didn't have the room, I wouldn't be carrying them. I wouldn't hold on to them. And there comes a point in time where you need to do that spring cleaning or midwinter cleaning and pull them boxes out and go through them and say, is this something that we plan on using this year? And if not, get rid of it. Make more room for stuff that you are going to use, right? And any typical shop, you know, just going off the top of my head, could get by with a couple different lengths of string for reruns and stuff. Go on eBay or Amazon and buy 4 to 6 foot of like 4 or 5 different common fuel lines that are used on the small engine stuff. I can tell you right now, 1/4 inch is what is used mostly on the riders and snowblowers. You start getting different sizes when you get into the chainsaws and weed trimmers and stuff like that. It goes down to really small fuel line. Spark plugs. I can think of 4 that you should be carrying. And that's a RC12YC, I think it is. Then the 11YC, 19YC, and then the CJ8 and the CJ6. So there's 5 plugs. One fuel filter is what we use on all the stuff now. We found a throw it out the wall, it works. You know, in the early days when microns mattered, if you put a non OEM fuel filter on, like say a John Deere, the microns in it actually would cause it to either run rough by starving for fuel or flooding because it's getting too much fuel through it. Where now it's not so much the case. Most of it's fuel pumps and stuff like that. The filter is only acting as a filter, not as part of the machine, right? So we only stock one style fuel filter, and we get them by the 10-pack because we go through a lot. We change them out every year on everybody's machine. Air filters, buy them as you need them. That's all I can tell you. Because there's so many different ones, and then if you end up, I'm going to have a couple on hand, and that 4 year goes by, and it's still sitting on the shelf, good chances are it's going to be sitting there for quite some time. Because now they're no longer available, and everybody's gone to a newer machine. It's a throwaway, right? But oil filters. There's 3 different ones. Honda, Kawasaki, the smaller one, Kohler, and Briggs. Those 3 are the most common oil filters you're going to need. And I would buy 2 of each. If you don't see a lot of Hondas or Kawasaki engines coming through your business, John Deere, then stock less of those and more of the Briggs or the Kohler. Oil, I get all synthetic. I get mine by the 55-gallon drum. But there's no reason you can't stock it by the quart or get a 5-gallon pail. And then Claude uses a glass quart container, and he's got a line on it where it's a quart when you take it out of the big drums. And that's how he does it. What else could we use in the shop that would come in handy? Carb cleaner, PB blaster. Those are a must. Of course, your tools, right? And I wouldn't worry so much about the specialty tools right now. I would go for the basics, like the video that I did here 2 weeks ago with the what I feel is the must-have tools. Because there's always going to be those tools that would be nice to have, right? But the way I've always done things, and maybe I'm wrong, is I take the money that I'm making off from jobs and reinvest it back into the business, whether it's into tools, inventory, what have you. And if you're doing nights and weekends or do it yourself, or you can afford to do this, right? But a shop, if you're paying employees or you're trying to make a living too, it makes it a little bit harder. So if you get a chance, go back through and look at the must-have tools. And then you'll see some other tool videos that I did of the specialty tools and where we use them. And I'll be honest with you, there have been specialty tools that came through this shop that are still sitting here that only got used once. We needed it for that job. I bought it, and now it sits. And those are what I call one-offs. That you'll probably never use it again, but you got it on the shelf. I mean, Was it you say, Amos, you never met a tool you didn't like? Well, I got tons of them. You're going to need a decent computer where you can look up parts, or your phone. And depending upon what type of business you're going to be running, whether it's nights and weekends, you don't need to be legit yet. You're not making enough unless that's what you're doing. You're putting a lot of time in or whatever. But, most of the people that I deal with either want to pay with a card, Vino, or PayPal. We don't get a lot of cash customers. I guess that people don't carry cash. I do. I mean, cash is king as far as I'm concerned. But I have the Vino account. I have PayPal. I have the credit and debit card account with, the virtual terminal that I use. We did have the swipe here, but it got to be too expensive for what we were using it for. But I did notice the other day when I stopped at another storefront, and they had a nice handy updated machine, and that's all it did. It was linked right to their account, and you didn't have to touch anything other than punch in the amount and then let the customer use their card. That I might bring back depending on how busy we actually get. Software, you don't really need any special software. For us, I use Excel, the Office products, where I created my own invoice system, and I created my own repair slips that I print out for Claude, and he writes down his time and parts and everything else on. Those were self-made. You could do that in Word and Notepad and whatever your heart's content. Of course, safety wear, glasses, steel-toed boots, non-flammable stuff that you can wear when you're welding or using the torches. That's a big plus. Depending upon the size of your shop, we have the large set of oxygen and acetylene, and we have the small one. I know some of you guys are getting by with the MAP. It's a yellow container, and it's a hot flame. Or the butane, or the propane, butane, what have you. We use the torches quite a bit, especially if we have something that's seized on. We'll give it some PB Blaster, and then we'll get a cherry red and pop it off. Welders, and one of the I don't want you guys to become too overwhelmed, but I would highly recommend the wire feed. You can get it in the 110, so you don't need a 220 outlet to plug it in, all right? That, you can do a lot of the welds. Is it going to take longer than a stick weld? Yeah, because you're not putting as much product weld onto the unit at once. It's a small wire instead of, a thick pencil. So if I'm trying to fill in a large area, wire feed just isn't going to cut it for me. I'm going to go with a stick, do the first weld down through with that, and then if I have to do any fine tuning, I can go back to the wire feed. But you're talking days to hours with having both in the shop. The drawback is for the AC/DC welder that I have, the Hobarts. I have two of them. They're both 220. So that means you got to have a 220 outlet. And most houses have like a dryer outfit. But if you know of an electrician, or if you are an electrician, or you can go into add another 220 breaker and run a wire out into your shop and have it mounted somewhere where you could plug in. We have a 40-foot extension cord that we can plug into the receptacle and then take our welder right out in the middle of the yard if we had to. The hard thing is we're getting older and dragging it around on wheels, but it can be done. Is it a must to get started? No, but they're handy as hell. I like the wire feed when I'm working on decks, especially. take the grinder, get it all cleaned up, cut out your bad spots. We save all the scrap steel that we have. Anything. And you don't want, when you're doing decks, you don't want a real thick piece, all right? You want something that is about the same thickness as the deck itself. And once you get done putting that patch into place with the weld, take some black or whatever color the deck is and paint it. Not to hide it, but to keep it from rusting. If you don't have a bench, if you get a couple of the sawhorses and a half a sheet of, like a 4x4 sheet of plywood, you can set on the sawhorses to work. Makes things so much easier, all right? In the comments, what are the things that you guys are using that I'm missing? Because I assume a lot, and there's so much to it. It's just, I don't want to overwhelm you guys that are just getting into it like, holy cow, this is insurmountable. But if you follow the logic of taking the money that you're making and reinvesting it back into tools that you could use to make the job easier, that's the key. Is a lot of these things make the job easier and quicker if you have the right tools. But, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? You got to start getting business before you go out and spend a boatload of money on tools, right? So a basic set just to get you going so that you're starting to make money at it to reinvest back into it, right? If you don't have any business lined up or you don't foresee any business lined up, why do you need all those tools? I guess is the bigger question. If you're a home do-it-yourselfer, it'd probably be cheaper in the long run to find a friend that's got a set of torches and go over there and have him do the heat and get it broke free than it is to pay a yearly lease on, you pay a yearly lease on the tanks plus whatever goes into the oxygen and acetylene. And I can tell you that the oxygen will go through twice as fast as the acetylene. We go through 2 tanks for every one of the acetylene. And at the end of the year, you're probably talking, but we use them a lot. But with the lease and everything, you're probably talking around $400. And I own the gauges and all that stuff. But in our area, even if you bought the tanks, they don't like swapping them out or refilling them for you right there. The closest refill for us is about 60 miles away. And it's just not worth it to me to spend the fuel to go all the way out there just to get my own tanks refilled when I can just swap them out with a local auto parts that I get along well with and I support his business. So in the comments, what are the things that I'm missing, that would be helpful getting started out without trying to overwhelm you? On that note, you guys have a great Tuesday. I'm going to see if I can hobble cardiac rehab. I'm still not sure of yet because every time I sit down for a minute, my knee hurts like crazy to get up. So you guys enjoy your Tuesday.